Good morning. My name's Gary Price. I'm the Product and Category Manager for the Probrand group of businesses. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes or so going through our perception of what is the IT supply chain, what does the IT channel look like, and what do we do within that supply chain. But it'll also give you an idea of the way we look at business, maybe something similar that you guys can look at it as well, as when you're looking for an actual supplier to work with or a partner to engage with. These are the sort of things that I'm trying to get my sales teams and the purchasing teams to look at and consider maybe good practice for you guys to consider the same sort of things to look through. So I'm going to go through just a brief summary here of introduction, who I am, what background. I'll look at the supply chain from a vendor perspective. I spent some time with our account manager within Toshiba to try and get a bit of a rounded understanding of what a supply chain looks like from a vendor perspective and the trials and tribulations that they go through from getting a product from a build of components through to your desk. So I'll quickly run through that with you and give you some ideas of the things that they go through and they consider. It's also, it kind of affects how the price ends up at the start, you know, is at the start or at the end of the cycle on the supply chain. We'll then go through a few points of the resale perspective, so understanding how we think and the way we work, and then give you an idea of some of the stats. I also work with likes of GfK, which are business intelligence analysts, so we're going to go through some of the key stats and some of the key product categories and give you an idea of the size of the market and some of the trends and things that are going on in the supply chain. Okay. First of all, a little bit about myself. I've been in the IT industry for over 15 years. I've worked for small, less than £10 million resellers up to £500 million resellers, working on the anything from the credit control side all the way through to product and category management there, dealing with £250 million budgets on notebooks and desktops and the core branded products. So creating marketing collateral, organising products, organising stock, so dealing with various stock products and virtual products that you get through the supply chain. So I spent plenty of time doing that. Working with the key vendors, it's all right to say you've got an IT product range of 150,000 products, but are they all suitable? What do they all mean? What are the plans and where are the manufacturers going with the technology and with the brands as well? So I spent a lot of time dealing with the likes of Microsoft and Toshiba and HP, Lenovo, understanding what their messages are and what their growths and aspirations are within the supply chain, and then pass that on to the sales guys that they can use that to empower the conversations with the customers. So they're actually asking the right questions or offering the right products for the customers as they go along. As I say, I've worked with the Probrand group for 7 years now. They're a unique type of business. They've got the reseller side, they've got a services side, and they've also got the software technology side as well. And I get involved in all of those, help working with Andy and develop some of the product information that goes into maket and some of the product selections there. I work with our services team to make sure that they're offering the right solutions that go out to the customers. And Probrand, again, making sure that they offer the right products that go out to you guys. So, as I said, to start off with, we're going to look at the supply chain. The managing the uncontrollable was actually a quote given to me by my Toshiba account manager, saying, you think it'd be quite easy just to put a load of components together in a box, ship it over and sell it to someone in the UK. You think it'd be relatively easy, but fairly structured, fairly simple to do. There's so much going on, there's so much error, chance for error, opportunity for things to go wrong. So I'll just quickly go through the supply chain. I'm sure you guys are already aware of how the supply chain works. You've got basically vendors that are building the products, so they're building the components, putting them together, getting them out to market. It then goes into distribution. They're like low margin, high turnover businesses, very much high risk because they've got the huge warehouses with all these products going into, and that's going to then get shipped out to resellers to sell to customers. So they've got probably the highest risk there. Then you've also got resellers the next along the chain. They're actually supplying the products out to the customer. So they've got the relationship 9 times out of 10 with the customers. So they're the ones who are actually pulling that product through. So as you can see, there's various lines here, and you can see the engagement. You have some vendors that are dealing direct with the end user. So you've got the orange line there that's showing they're dealing direct, the likes of Dell, one or two others that deal directly. You can have vendors that are dealing all the way through the supply chain. So they're passing stock into distribution. Resellers are then buying the stock from distribution, and it ends up with you customers. You do have some where the stock goes direct to the reseller as well. So there's multiple tiers and levels and various amounts of engagement within the supply chain for that product to actually get to you at the end. You'd think it would be relatively easy, but as a Toshiba account manager, they've got to manage all that process. So going through a little bit about Toshiba, I suppose you already know about that. You know, they only sell in direct. They don't sell anything direct to a customer. So everything has to go through the supply chain. So they've got to make sure that all the people along the supply chain understand their offering, understand the way they're doing their business, where the products fit into the market, where the technology fits into the market as well. Because as technology changes, you've got to make sure that customers are aware of it and they understand what's going on. They focus on laptop technology. Unlike some of the other manufacturers that are out there that sell notebooks, that's all really that Toshiba do. The vast majority of their business is around the laptop market. And they base it all around the mobility side and speaking and engaging with customers to understand what products do they need, where do they fit in. Netbooks at one stage were a big driver. That's kind of dissipated, and people didn't really see and understand that. So they now move to all the tablets and the other sort of products and portfolio that's out there. They very much work around this fit-for-purpose device. They're one of the few manufacturers that actually have a reliability guarantee. Basically, what this means is that if the product fails and is beyond repair, they'll give you a new product and give you the money back. They can do this because they manage the supply chain a lot better than others. You know, they have their own factories, they have their own technology, so they can actually stand up and say, I will guarantee that that will work, and if it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. There's not many that can actually build it from their own all the way up. They're number one in public sector and one of the biggest notebook providers in the B2B channel. And believe it or not, in the UK, there's only 100 staff working for Toshiba in total, covering the whole of the UK. And there's only 8 of them actually responsible for the B2B market. If you think about the size of the market and the size of how many notebooks you think Toshiba sell, there's only 8 guys working in the reseller channel for thousands of resellers. There may be 15 or 16 end user guys, loads of marketing, loads of people working in the supply chain, loads of people working in marketing. There's only actually 8 guys on the front line working with the resellers, trying to engage to get this pulled through. Okay, so going through the product life and trying to understand how it works and how it works as far as Toshiba are concerned, it takes around 10 to 12 months for the planning to start and get the product into production. They're thinking 10, 12 months ahead, and they're engaging with the likes of users, the channel, looking at the competition, trying to see what's going on, trying to identify what will my portfolio of products look like in 12 months' time. It's really difficult for them to manage that because they don't really know what's going on. And the most important thing is they're still at the hands of what Microsoft and Intel are doing. If Microsoft and Intel decide that they want to suddenly bring out a new chipset or suddenly bring out a new OS or change the operating system, that can cause a lot of repercussions to the product that's being built in advance. You know, so it's very difficult to manage that. I mean, the prime example would be around the Windows 8 transition. You know, everybody moved to Windows 8. You know, Microsoft were adamant that everybody would adopt this Windows 8 new touch technology and it'd be great. In reality, it didn't. Nobody really wanted it. It didn't do what they wanted. They didn't have the desktop button, you know, easily get onto the desktop and do that. So what they had to do is very quickly was get out Windows 7 drivers and disks back out into the supply chain to subsidize all these products that are going out to give the customers the option. That wasn't predicted 12 months ago because Microsoft was saying, it's great, don't worry about it. So you've got to take that into consideration all the time when they're building and have the ability to move and try and move around as they're going along. When it gets to building the product, they have to start negotiating with the component level. So they'll speak to Intel and say, okay, I want 500,000 of these i3 processors, so much memory, so much hard drives, and have all the stuff in stock ready. But they've got to make sure that they negotiate terms and understand that if the processor changes or anything changes, they've got to be ready to ship out the old stuff and replace it with the new stuff, because Toshiba focus on the latest technology. That's one thing to consider as well when you're actually price checking products or looking for like in brands, is making sure that you actually are comparing like for like. Years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, Dell were great and offering a great price on their online configurator, but when you compared it with likes of HP on like for like, they were using slower hard drives or previous generation processors, but because of the way it looked, everyone just saw the initial specification, thought, oh, it's all the same, but it was 50 or 100 pounds cheaper. In reality, it wasn't. You were just dealing with older generation technology. So they need to understand how they're going to purchase, what they're going to purchase, and also make sure that the customers understand what this new technology is and comes through. I was at the launch of the Intel's i-series processors, you know, the Core i processors, when they came out. I sat there in an auditorium with loads of journalists that were talking about this new technology coming out, saying how wonderful it was. At the end of the presentation, the journalist just stood up saying, what's the point? We already can't use the speed and the processing power that we've got in our machines already. What's the point of making it faster, making it quicker? My brain can't work any quicker than this. So what do I really need this for? And in reality, they changed the tune and moved it around, saying, well, it's all around the security. It's all around the processing and the efficiency on the green side. So they quickly changed the messaging from saying it's faster, it's quicker, you'll do stuff better, you can multitask. Well, I can't. I could only do one thing at once as it is anyway. So they're saying they're now moving the message. Microsoft have done the same thing with their technology they're bringing out. It's now around the security and the efficiency side of it, rather than being faster and what have you. So trying to manipulate and move their messages around to meet the customers. And it's important for the manufacturers and the resellers to make sure that message is passed on to you guys, that you understand what the benefit is. And if you don't understand it, you won't buy it. You know, the market's fairly flat at the moment, just slightly trying to increase because people are holding fire. I've now got 10 different types of form factor of a notebook, for example, now. Which one do I need? Which one do I want? People were probably burnt when they were looking at netbooks, thinking, I've got a great £200 laptop here, it's going to be wonderful. It wasn't. It was great for just looking online and doing a few bits and pieces, but in reality, it wasn't a notebook at £200. So people are holding fire to see where the technology is going and how it's going to work. They have to, also as well as considering and buying all the componentry that goes in there, they also should be having to buy the currency that they're going to buy it in. You know, they have to take into consideration what's the best way to buy the technology. You know, are you buying it in yen? Are you buying it in sterling, dollars, euro? And then to secure your cost price from 10 months forward, you need to actually have to buy the currency at an agreed exchange rate, so you know that that's going to be my cost price to build that product. You know, it's not, if you wait and just buy it ad hoc, your price, actual landed price of the product could be considerably higher if the exchange rate moves or fluctuates. That's why, you know, within KnowledgeBus, it's looking at this technology, this line that talks about the exchange rates. Normally, when you speak to a reseller, that's one of their first excuses to why the price has gone up. It's the dollar rate, changing the dollar rate, or the componentry costs has caused the products to go up in price. That's what we get told by vendors. So, you know, that's why another thing why that's on the site, to try and give you that notice that, well, it hasn't really increased, it hasn't really gone up. The way they work, that they're purchasing and they're planning way ahead, as I said. The way it works is Toshiba, as a global entity, goes out to the individual areas, so the individual countries, Europe, you know, Australasia, and the Americas, and they do a requirement, what they need in 6 months' time and in 3 months' time. That's then held fast in the ground. They can't change that. That then goes to the factory, and the factory builds it accordingly. So you've got to keep planning ahead. It does change occasionally. If you suddenly want 4,000 notebooks, they can actually try and move stuff around and try and get the stuff in the factory. So it's almost on a build-to-order basis, based on the requirements from the country or individual customer requirements. And within Toshiba, the priorities when it gets to Q4 is always around the retail side, because they've got a retail set of SKUs and a business set of SKUs. So when you get into towards the Q4 planning, the consumer set of SKUs become more important. So when it actually gets into the supply chain, it gets into the product journey, there's lots of things. Like I said, most of the products are actually built in Asia, so they're built in China or they're built in Japan. So they've got to get across. Now, a slow boat from China, yeah, they do actually, some of these products do come over on a boat. Some of them are airships as well. So if you're airshipping them, they can be delivered overnight. But it's a massive cost as well to be able to do this. So the cheaper, lower end products are shipped on a container, and that can take anything to 8 to 10 weeks for it to come through. The products actually go into Germany, where they're then actually finished and built as a final piece, because they've actually worked out that it's cheaper to send a notebook, for example, a notebook like this, the bottom case and the display, they actually ship them in 2 pieces because of all the failures that they had by shipping them in one lump in a box. They actually send them in 2 pieces, where they go to Germany, where they're actually finished, put together, boxed together, put all the right power cables in, the right transformers in, and then they get shipped out to the UK. So they go from Asia through to Germany and then through to the UK. So there's lots of times and things to consider. They actually have their own factories as well as use the third-party factories as well. So the high-end products that they're actually building are built actually into Toshiba plants in Japan and China. This is because they want the continuity of the product to be stable. They want to make sure it's all done at the best quality. The other ones, the lower-end ones, are actually done in factories a lot on the same line. There's actually the same runs. We'll have Toshiba products running through them, HP products and Lenovo products, all built in the same factory, just going down the line, being built all together. Believe it or not. One of the issues I was actually highlighted when I had the conversation with her, that there have been issues and circumstances where these slow boats coming over from China have actually been attacked by pirates. Believe it or not, even in these days. And I don't know if that was an excuse to say why the delivery was a little bit late or not. I don't know. But they're saying, these sort of issues can lead to the supply chain being delayed. They say they're shipped over to Germany, and then they're finished, boxed, and then transported into the UK. But even transporting them into the UK, I've got to go through all the customs, getting across from Germany, France into England. That could cause problems as well. You've got immigration to consider if someone's hiding under the packaging or on the back of the trailer, or they just want to impound it just to do a security check on it. So again, that can delay the actual process of getting the product back to yourselves. So again, as I said, it's trying to understand what's going on there, and you can't always give a guaranteed delivery date because there's so many things to take into consideration. Talking about the UK supply chain, as I said, Toshiba don't sell direct, so they've got to manage the process from start to finish. The account managers focus on the push-pull effect with this, so they want to push business in, but they also want to make sure that customers are pulling it as well, getting it out of the warehouses. So they'll negotiate with distribution because they've done a forecast of 6,000 units or 10,000 units. They build them, go into Germany, they're on a wagon on the way over to the UK, so they've got to then manage where's this going to go. It can't stay in Toshiba's warehouse, it's got to get into someone else's because that's sold once it gets into distribution. So they will sell the products into distribution. So they'll go and speak to the relevant key disties, decide who's going where, what's going where. They'll also engage with resellers that take stock on behalf of the distie to make sure the stock goes to them as well. So they've got some of the pull through from the actual resellers that are taking stock. But some resellers don't actually hold stock. So they need to make sure they're working with the resellers that don't as well, so they understand the product that's coming out to try and pull that business out of distribution into the reseller or via the reseller out to the customer. So it's very difficult for them to do that, and they need to understand what products fit where. Toshiba have an entry-level, a mid-range, and a high-end product portfolio, so they need to make sure they're focusing the right products in the right area. So you don't want people who are very corporate-orientated with a load of entry-level SAP Pros, and vice versa. You don't want to put £1,000 Portagés in somewhere where they're just going to do low-end transactional business and just push it through on the SAP Pro range. So to do that, they work with the reseller or with the distie, when it comes to marketing and making sure that the marketing supports, so the right marketing messages are out there. You've got your cashbacks, you've got your end user redemption stuff, you've got discounts, free this, free that, free the other. They've got to try and find ways to push that. But once that stock goes into distribution, it doesn't end there. They've got to make sure the marketing's covering it there. If the product isn't meeting its expectations, as in it's not clearing out as quickly as it should have done, because Lenovo may have put another 5,000 lines in there, exactly the same product with a different badge on, and so on and so on. They've got to find a way of doing it. They've got to try and help shift that stock. Do they look at price protection? Do they rotate the stock round so it goes through the other way? Do they reduce the prices? Do they make other promotions and offers? Try and clear that stock out. And all of it is supported and run through the supply chain. So they've got to make sure they manage it all. So it's not, most people think working for a manufacturer is an easy job. Sit there, have a cup of coffee in Costa, take someone out for lunch, job sorted. There's so much more behind the scenes that they've got to manage and maintain. And these guys have £1 million targets on a monthly basis that they've got to clear out and achieve and push through. But they can't force that. They're relying on other people to make decisions. And they've got all the competition to cope with at the same time. Okay, so that's just giving you a quick update or a run through on the life of a vendor. Now, I don't want you all to feel sorry for them because they still do okay. So just a quick look at it from that side. Now, next one is to look at it from a reseller perspective, to how I engage and work with the sales team I have here, but also, like I said, it gives you an idea of the sort of things you should be looking for in the partners that you work with as well. I'm going to go through again just a few quick things here. So the main focus is the product knowledge, the understanding of a customer, what the customer needs and what they want. The vendor engagement is key to anything being successful. And finally, being able to stand out from the competition. So first of all is around the product knowledge. There's so many, as I said before, there's so many products out there now. There's so many variations of products out there. You've got, as far as notebooks are concerned, you've got a standard notebook, a big thick notebook like that, an ultrabook like Matt has there. You've got tablets, you've got convertibles, you've got 2-in-1s, you've got yogas that are twisty, locky, and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. And that's just notebooks. If you consider a mobile device, you've also got the phablets, the phones, tablets. You've got so many varieties and options of products at the moment. You need to understand what fits in where and how the customer is going to use it and which one do you focus on. Because it's all right then buying a product. Yes, you'll get your 3% margin because you've negotiated well using KnowledgeCube, but those products could probably end up on a shelf if they're not fit for purpose. They're not actually fit for what that customer wants or what that customer needs. So it's also, really, you should understand what the benefits of the technology are. Like I said, the processor may move from 3rd generation to 4th generation. What does that mean? You may be paying £30 or £40 extra for the product. What business benefit does it offer the customer? How can you justify that they're going from this £400 to £450? You've got to be able to justify that change and explain it in terms that the customer sees as a benefit. The modern IT estate, I always get in trouble for this at work, but when I'm talking to new guys, especially talking about what the modern IT estate actually looks like, go really back to basics and say to them, what do you do when you press print on your PC? There's not magic fairies at the other end, actually realizing you printed something and coloring in a picture for you so it prints out. You've got all the network, you've got all the infrastructure around that supports that product, that print to get from your desktop to the printer on a piece of paper. And they need to understand that, because one thing I always talk about is share of wallet with customers. And as a salesperson, what you speak to all the sales guys you engage with, they'll believe that they get 100% of your business. They'll think that it comes to me for everything. Okay, so when I look at the stats and he goes, okay, so their IT budget's £500 per year. Maybe not. They only sell toners, but you've never sold them a single printer. What are they doing? Building a castle? What are they doing with these toners? So they need to understand the estate and what they're missing out on and what the customer should be looking to purchase and why. There's also the vendors as well. You've got to find the right vendor that suits. Prime example, well, maybe not a good example, but Sony, for example. If you're dealing with an IT director or maybe a PR agency, they'll want something that's flash, that's there for purpose. Maybe a bit of a generalization, but they probably do. and they won't want you to position a £300 or £400 entry-level machine to them. So it's understanding which vendors are the right vendor to engage with the customer, again, based on what the customer needs. And finally, the supply chain. If they understand how the supply chain works, they can set the customer's expectations. If the product is a build-to-order product, they've got to set their expectation accordingly. If the stock's gone, they need to understand, is that likely to come back in stock? Again, it's referring back to the technology and understanding the products. Lower-end, cheaper products have probably a 3 to 6 month life cycle. Higher-end products tend to last longer. They tend to be in the market longer for 6 to 12 months. So again, it's understanding the products and the positioning and where it fits into the supply chain. Just as importantly is understanding the customer. I might as well start at the bottom. This bit, as an old sage told me this once, which is quite important as far as training the sales guys. 2 ears, 1 mouth. You should be listening, not talking all the time saying how wonderful you are and what great, great proposition you have. You're not giving the customer time to actually explain what they're doing and what they're talking about, or what they need. The thing I hate walking around a sales floor is someone saying, have you got anything for me today? I really do hate that. Or how's your cat, how's your dog? Yeah, great, have a conversation in the pub afterwards, but let's talk about how you're dealing with the business and engaging. So we need to understand, from a business perspective, what does that business do? So if you understand what the business does, you understand the drivers for that business and the way that they're going to engage. You should be engaging and how you should be positioning products for them. You need to understand what their short and long-term plans are for the business and for the IT estate as well. What are their short-term plans? Are they just want to save some money? Do they want to invest some money? Do they want to grow? Do they want to go wireless? Do they want to go cloud? Understanding where their short-term and long-term plans are. So again, you're not selling them products for the short-term objective. You're looking more at the long-term. Well, this product should be lasting them 3 to 5 years. Let's find a product that's fit for purpose, that's lasting them 3 to 5 years. Then when you get to the understanding it from a customer perspective, it's around the motivation of why they want to purchase it. Why do they need this product? Is it because of a pain point? Is this going to resolve an issue that they have? Do they need some more storage, so they're buying some more storage? Do they just need to replace a product because it's broken, or because it's 4 or 5 years old? Or is it plans for growth? You need to understand that, and if it's plans for growth, what are the other things that they need to wrap around that? Will their network be fit for purpose if they're going to grow? So they need to be considering these, and you should be being asked these questions, not, have you got anything for me today? You definitely don't want to walk away from that sort of thing. Finally, as well, is the budget. That should really be the last thing you're talking about. You should understand what's going on first, and the budget is the last thing. Now, a lot of people, because of Google, you probably do a lot of the research yourselves and decide what product you're going and which way you're working. But these sales guys, because they work with the vendors, should be able to talk to you through where the technology is going, what the vendor proposition is, what the vendor's considering. Because if you think of vendors are not just account managers that are talking to customers, that are just talking to resellers. They also have a field sales team that engage with customers. So they're probably speaking to 20 or 30 of you guys, understanding what's going on. And when you understand what's going on in the marketplace, it makes it a lot easier for you to position and identify points or solutions. One of my favorite things, and showing my age here, was an advert from years ago when they said, saw this and thought of you. That's where I try and get them to see benefit of when they're doing training and tagging sessions with the vendors, that they actually should be able to think of a customer that this product will relieve some pain or fit their needs exactly. So they understand where the products fit in the channel, where the vendor fits in the channel, as I said before about low-end products, high-end products, cheap products, working from there, understanding which one. And then the vendor will be able to give the right people roadmaps and plans for the future, where their product's going to go. If you're talking about doing a longer-term tender, you need to understand, will that product be around in 6 months' time, 12 months' time? Should you be considering which way to go? Again, looking at the history within KnowledgeBus, you can actually see the product there. And if you look at like some notebooks or desktops, the low-value ones are only 3 to 6 months. They like drop in 5,000 units. When they're gone, they're gone. So you can normally tell from the manufacturer, from the model, or from the type of product, will this product be around when I'm trying to do a plan for 6 months' time? So it's always worth looking at that as well when you're looking in KnowledgeBus. From a vendor perspective, engaging with the vendor is really useful because they can offer a lot of IT support that'll make the project that you're trying to work on successful. They'll know they've probably dealt with something similar before, or spots a similar customer before, they've got it rolled out, or they've engaged it with another piece of technology, and this is how they resolved an issue. So engaging with the vendor, and resellers have access to these vendors, and vendors are really keen to get out to see you guys because they realize that they can help sell the product for the reseller as well. So that once you engage with an end user team, it'll give you the confidence that you know that the product's going to work, you know it'll fit into your estate, you know you'll get that longevity. But what it'll also do is you've got a fair chance of getting this below cost pricing as well on high-end stuff. Engaging with an end user team will give you the opportunity to get this below channel cost pricing that you were talking about. Final one is the best way you can get discounts across as far as you're concerned is around the warranties or the care packs, so, you know, the support you get for a product. They're basically insurance, so that they're easy to discount 9 times out of 10 for a vendor through a reseller. This means that you can get 5-year support or 3-year support on your original product, and it'll protect your investment for a little bit longer. Recently, HP have brought out a diktat regarding their servers that you can only get firmware upgrades if you've got a warranty. Once it falls out of warranty, you can't get the firmware upgrade. So you need to make sure that when you're considering HP, they're only bringing that in line with most of the rest of the marketplace. It's not something they've gone, we're doing this because we want to sell some more warranties. They're bringing it in line with some of the competition. But what that means though now is when you're buying a server, you're looking at refreshing the server estate, you need to maybe consider buying a 5-year warranty as opposed to a 3-year warranty to make sure you're covered. Or after 3 years, be looking for a post warranty to make sure that's covered as well. Or else if you don't get the firmware, you know, you're running risk of potential problems with your estate. Finally, from the resale perspective, it's all about standing out from the competition. There's thousands of resellers out there. If you just go purely on price, it's a bum fight. Nobody's going to be happy. No one's going to win. You know, so the companies are going to go out of business very, very quickly. So you need to look at other things that are going to stand out. The recognition from independent sources is always good, so it could be references. As far as Probrand are concerned, our technology has been ratified and checked by the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales, so financially it's covered there that the technology is doing what it says on the tin and processing through efficiently. But it's also certified by SIPS as well, so the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. The technology works and does what it's supposed to do. It was really difficult to get that SIPS accreditation because they're used to dealing on a one-on-one relationship with an IT buyer. When we say technology can do what the IT buyer does or the purchasing manager does, we had to show it and prove it and justify it and explain it all. And it took them a while to get their head around you're using technology as opposed to using a person as well, or in fact more efficiently than what we're doing. It was a very big job, but it gives you that accreditation, that proof that you can go, I want to buy from these, yeah, the price is okay, but they have this bit of value offer that just offers you something different to what everyone else has. The impartial support and guidance, you know, everyone set claims, most salespeople said they're impartial, they're going to offer you the best product. But working for a £500 million company in the past, I had a big warehouse. I had to clear out what was in my warehouse. So I had to make sure that no matter what you wanted, I may have 5,000 of these desktops I need to clear, so you're going to get one of these desktops no matter what you want. But again, the way Probrand works, we don't. We have a virtual stock environment. All our stock is held in distribution, so we can offer you 10 options that best fit you. So that makes it easy. So just beware that you're confident of what you're looking for and what you want, and don't be press ganged into making decisions based on what the competition may well have in stock. And again, you've got to make sure that we tend to set expectations based on what's really happening. You know, Probrand are classed as an honest broker within the market. You know, if we say it's going to take if it's going to take 10 days, we'll say it's going to take 10 days. Because all it's going to do is upset you guys, and we don't really want to go through that. We don't want to lose accounts. Retaining customers is most important. And having that wraparound service, you think about the reseller channel at the moment, a lot of resellers are moving to being services providers or specialists in certain areas. Having the opportunity to deliver all three, you know, the hardware, the support, and the service, and as well as solutions as well, you know, the key elements there. There's plenty there to keep you going and support you all under one umbrella. Okay, next couple of slides are going to be quite busy, so I'll go through them relatively quickly for you. Just an overview of the market. As I said, I work closely with the likes of GfK, and you'd be grateful for this. This is only about a 22-slide presentation. When you deal with GfK, you're talking about 180 slides on average, where they'll go through the ins and outs of every single process for every single product category and showing the sales out through, you know, all the different areas within the IT channel. So I'm not going to do that, so don't worry. I'm going to go through a few key lines. Their feedback basically is their figures are improving. You get the economy is getting a little bit more positive. Inflation is doing okay. Interest rates remain low. You know, borrowing facilities are improving, so it's getting the market moving again. You know, the S&B market's starting to drive and grow, and as that grows, it's investing into other areas as well, which is great. Exchange rates. If you look at the exchange rates and the way the curve's going as well, that's doing well for the pound at the moment. We're getting more, you know, it's not just for your holidays, it's also good as regarding purchasing and pricing at the other end. Again, remember I said at the beginning, people buy currency long-term within the vendors, so their cost prices are fixed. So when it comes through here, they may be able to lower their sell prices through to you because the way the exchange rates are moving. So that can be always beneficial. Technology stabilizing. Like I said, with Windows 8, people are getting more of a level playing field now. They're understanding when 8.1 came out, the understanding is getting a little bit better. You know, the product range and the portfolio is standardizing as well. There's still one or two manufacturers still waiting to see what's going on before they decide, will I go for the yoga style, bendy, twisty, or the convertible, or just go down the laptop and tablet sort of route. So it's stabilizing a little bit. So as it stabilizes, then prices start coming down as the market matures. And also, I mean, you've got to consider as well is you've got cloud computing going on there. So everyone's considering virtualization. Everyone's considering cloud backup and cloud storage as opposed to buying a big server and heating the whole building with all the servers and storage that you've got in that building. Also, the multiple device option. You know, you've got, you know, the gentleman over there has got 2 devices on his desk. So on desk there, you've probably also got some back at the office as well. We were over in Germany with Fujitsu, and they said on average, everyone has at least 7 devices that they actually connect to the internet. So if you think about your smart TV, maybe your Xbox, your phones, your desktop, your notebook, your, you know, all these, your car even has a sat nav. They did a bit of a straw poll and one guy stopped at 20 based on the number of devices. I don't know if you had a big family and everybody an Xbox or a Sky box or anything like that, but if you sit there and suddenly think of anything that's connected to the internet, it slowly but surely stacks up. You know, so that is actually bringing the market forward and increasing the opportunity that's out there for people as well. And just a headline there, the reseller market, so the business-to-business market, is worth on average around about £180 million a month. That's on average across all the product ranges that they sell. So again, as I said, they're very busy slides, but just giving you some key lines on some of the key product categories. You can see here, in January and February, 189,000 notebooks were actually sold in January and February, which is actually up 8% year on year. Worth £115 million, which is up 15%, and most of that increase is because, as I said before, new products come with a premium. As the product stabilizes and as everyone understands the technology, the prices start to come down. Believe it or not, value-added resellers represent 70% of the market. So whereas in your own private life, you're probably doing more online and ordering more through online vendors or online suppliers, that's actually declining. Mail order is actually down to 30%. Now again, I don't know if that's due to the technology and people don't understand what they should be buying, so they're asking advice as opposed to just going online and making their own decisions and placing orders online. Standard notebooks are still only 90% of the market, so a standard notebook, you know, like these guys like to see here, a massive percentage of the market. But there is growth in that less than 13-inch Ultrabook and Slate, so as people are moving more to these multi-form factor devices. Lenovo doing well in the market, again, because they're driving the price. You can see, if you look at the pricing on Lenovo, it's probably a lot cheaper, relatively cheaper than HP and Toshiba because they're driving the price, they're going for this market share. Dell have changed their strategy to be a more channel strategy approach. So you see more going through the distributor, through the resellers, as opposed to going direct. So that's improving their next business day offering. HP and Co, their shares in decline. And this is all based on just January and February sales. But that's, I think in my view, I think it's still coming to terms with the form factors and the operating systems that are available. Lenovo have a very established portfolio and range of products now. Looking at the likes of Toshiba and HP, not as much option there. Believe it or not, Windows 8, most people see Windows 8 as being touch. 89%, oops, gone back one there. 89% are sold and non-touch products. So again, I don't think business is ready yet for that touch experience. But when you speak to guys who have used a touch Windows 8 device, they'll never go back. Once they've got that notebook with touch screen, they don't want to go back. They want to keep that touch environment. And there you go. At the bottom is the average price and specification for a notebook in the market at the minute. Same again for desktops. Again, huge, 146,000 desktops sold in the first 2 months of the year. Even this is supposed to be a declining market. They were saying for months and for years that desktops are in decline. They're not. Personally, I have a desktop back at the office and I remote in using one of these or a notebook. So I can actually access the power of my desktop under my desk, but actually work remotely using my laptop or my tablet. So I think a lot of people are using that because of the cloud proposition and having multiple devices, that they're seeing this desktop continue to rise, or at least remain quite stable. Again, the declining all in ones, but apart from that, everything's remaining quite stable. HP, very good in the business. It's quite easy that they're still having the same offering they've had for years. They're just improving it on the technology and on the Intel-based products particularly. Lenovo, again, doing well from their from their notebooks. That people are buying the desktops as well. They're very competitively priced and have a good proposition. And Dell, same as before. So it's mostly Intel-based, similar sort of specification as the other notebook. Very quickly on the media tablet side. Now, within GfK, they separate Windows 8 tablets going under the notebook side. Media tablets cover the iOS and the Android products. So there is a bit of a difference there. It also actually includes Surface RT as well. There's any non-pro operating system, but it's kind of minimal. That's sort of the Surface Pro. Again, quickly running through that, the market's worth 35 million. It's increased predominantly because of Apple's majority in the market, and they brought out the new devices which were at a premium as well, so that's made the market increase. Apple have 83% of the market, which is quite astounding really. Samsung have 4%, and there's loads of other bit devices where they've done build towards on certain products that have actually, that bring up the remainder. One interesting point that came through from the conversation I had with GfK was around the bring your own device. They seem to think that retail's showing a bit of an increase because people are buying a tablet for their own personal use, but actually still using it a little bit for business. Again, this is my iPad. I actually use it to connect to my emails and check my emails and do a little bit of work on it as well. So they're saying that the bring your own device is actually affecting the retail, which is actually affecting the business B2B side as well. Okay, quick run at printers. I know we had a conversation earlier on about printing, this being a paperless building. The printers figures are down by 11%, still worth 16 million, which is quite a reasonable chunk of money. A lot of it is driven by printer consolidation, managed print solutions and digital printing. So, you know, for 10 years I've been speaking to vendors saying, everyone's going to go down the managed print route, everyone's going to go down digital printing. I've actually never seen this happen yet. You know, still waiting, still a few people doing it. But, you know, exception here, we're seeing that they're going to digital printing. That may be the way forward and the way to drive business. Manufacturers are also saying around the consolidation approach, that there should be more sales within the multifunction devices and colour multifunction at that. So as people are consolidating, just having one printer that can do everything. HP have a strong share, they said, but Brother are strong in the mono side, and Kyocera have a good proposition around their ceramic drums and the colour laser printer side as well. And as one of the key points from the consumables side is, because we've gone through this printer refresh recently, the remans are falling back, so people are, there isn't the original toners out there for people to refill and remanufacture to go through again. So HP are trying to do that by saying, we'll provide you with a box, you can return all your toners and we'll turn them into pencils. They try to do that to stop the supply chain of the remanufacturers coming through. Glad to hear. Final slide. The other exciting areas for growth, according to vendors, is around mobility. It's understanding what product, what proposition does everybody want and what they're looking for. So you've got, like I say, you've got so many varieties of form factor now to engage in and decide which way you're going. So they say it's an exciting time, but it's also a very confusing time as well. Office 365, we've done a lot of work around Office 365. If you ask people the straw poll on what's Office 365, it's Office in the cloud. It is, but it doesn't have to be. You can run a hybrid version of Office 365, so you download it, it's one of the cheapest ways of buying it, and you install it to your desktop exactly as you've done historically. So you can actually buy it a cheap way there and just do an annual renewal from there. So it works out cheaper. There'll actually be a video going live in a few weeks on the Probrand website around what is Office 365. So it is a really interesting thing, and people, again, going back to getting the messaging right, Microsoft may not quite have got it right, or people's perceptions aren't quite in line with what it can do. Virtualization, everything is moving virtual, so they're recommending you buy one big beast of a machine now on the latest, greatest technology and virtualize and virtualize and virtualize. Are they going to regret this long term, where they're not selling as many servers as they thought before because everything is being virtualized? But if you look at HP, they're talking very much around all their software propositions as opposed to the hardware. So they're using likes of autonomy and other things to manage all this data you're going to be using, as opposed to just selling the hardware. An important one is managing infrastructure from one pane. HP have this HP One approach, where you've got the notebooks, the desktops, the servers, the storage, everything all on one pane that you can manage. It makes it easy for your IT manager, IT director to control everything that's going on. But when you speak to some of the other competitors, they're saying we could do that looking at HP stuff, or we could do that looking at HP stuff. So they're considering what the IT director or the IT manager is doing to help them make their life easier, so they actually engage and work with their technology. And finally, manage print. That's a cheaper way of understanding exactly what your IT costs are going to be on a monthly basis. You're paying a certain amount every month. It's relatively easy to manage and maintain. And it can actually go from one printer. Managed print solution can be from one printer. Okay, thank you very much.